so many have been given the message from the media that you will be lovable and you will be acceptable when you look like this, when you weigh like this, and when you're shaped like this. How could a road of self-hate possibly lead to self-love?
Hi, it's James here from Food Matters, and today I have an extra special guest that we're going to be chatting to about the psychology of eating. His name is Marc David. He's the founder and primary teacher for the Institute of the Psychology of Eating, for the Psychology of Eating. He's a leading visionary, teacher, and consultant in nutritional psychology. He's the author of the classic and groundbreaking books Nourishing Wisdom and The Slowdown Diet, and for over 3 decades, he has been an innovator in this space of the psychology of eating, how we approach, how we think about, how we eat, and developing a better relationship with food and our body and our life. His research and lifetime of experience has been driven by one compelling question: how can we combine the best of nutritional science and eating psychology to serve people in a profound and truly effective way? Marc David, it's great to be chatting to you today.
James, thank you so much. I'm listening to this beautiful introduction and thinking, I want to meet this guy.
Well, we're on the call together. So
right.
Tell me a little bit about this concept of dynamic eating psychology and what it means to you and how you sort of came across this work and how it really brought you into this field.
You know, James, great question. I think like so many of us, I got into this work out of personal necessity. You know, I came into this world, I was born sickly, asthmatic, immunocompromised. I almost died a handful of times in infancy. Nobody could figure out what was going on. And eventually, you know, I turned to nutrition at a very young age. Believe it or not, I was 5 years old. And I was raised in the generation of junk food, you know, and I'd heard a rumor that fruits and vegetables were good for you. Asked my mother to change my diet. She did. Coincidence or not, my health changed. And I had this kind of magical experience of, I have some power here and food really impacts me. So that put me on the nutrition path. And I learned everything I possibly could. And at some point when I started seeing clients in my early 20s, I noticed something very fascinating. I thought that all my nutrition knowledge was going to just move mountains. And when I started to notice was I could tell people what to do, what to eat. They could be intelligent and highly motivated. And they come back a week or two later and they would say to me, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what you told me. I couldn't do it. And for me, it was this mini revelation like, oh my goodness, I have to understand the mind of the eater if I'm really going to help people from a nutritional standpoint. Now, what happened was I went to then study eating psychology, and there wasn't any. All there was at that point, and this is the mid-'80s, early 80s, there was, I can intern somewhere and learn about anorexia. I can find some places to learn about bulimia. But I started thinking, what about the rest of us? What about everybody that you and I know who eats, who has a relationship with food? Maybe you want to lose 5 pounds, 20 pounds. Maybe you overeat. Maybe you binge eat. Maybe you love your body. Maybe you don't. Because there's so many people with those challenges. So to me, I realized, my goodness, the book I want to read isn't out there. So that was my cue sort of from the universe to really develop the work and to try to learn on my own, what would an eating psychology for everyone look like? So basic premise to me is that if you're alive, then you're eating and you have a relationship with food. And it's beautifully unique. You have your own take on it, your own habits. And we all know that mind impacts body as well. So it stands to reason that there's a good chance that who I am, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm believing, my level of stress, relaxation, how much pleasure I'm getting, awareness, all these things, my story, my history, this must impact our relationship with food. And indeed it does. So to me, eating psychology is really our food story and learning about it.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love what you first touched on when you started to answer that question. And it reminds me of a quote that somebody said. I could not think of the person, but they said, you can hand a piece of paper to anybody and ask them to write down a perfect diet that they should follow, and everybody will do quite a good job. The question is, why do we not eat that way? I think that's really an interesting point, that there's 2 different approaches to this. So tell me, why is the psychology, the belief systems, the stories, the values that we have around, our life so important when it comes to food, especially with regards to, I've got here like weight, body image, overeating. Why is it so important to work on that element of ourselves in conjunction with how we approach food?
Here's kind of how I look at it. We have a formula here. I don't know when this came to me, but let me say the formula and let me explain it. So the formula is this: personal power equals metabolic power. Personal power equals metabolic power, meaning the more I can become the person I'm meant to be, the more I can step into my greatest sense of self, my greatest character, giving my greatest gifts, the highest expression of me, the most conscious me that I could be, the more I could step into that, the more my body has the chance to step into its greatest metabolism, its greatest potential. Because, we live in a time when science has proven to us that mind and body are tracking each other, and in more profound ways than we probably understand. So what I started to notice was that as I worked on myself, my digestion got stronger. As I became better at communicating, as I became less of a knucklehead in relationships, as I matured, and really looked at my shadows, my blind spot, I was getting healthier. Yes, I was practicing good nutrition, but previously good nutrition wasn't enough for me. So to me, sort of how we do one thing is how we do other things. How we do life is how we do food. And it all kind of ties in together. And a lot of it, I think, also has to do with this thing called stress and relaxation. When we're in a stress state, and stress could mean fear, it could mean anxiety, it could mean hate, it could mean judgment, it could mean I don't like my body, it could mean I don't like the world, it could mean this place is meaningless. That causes stress. And when we're under stress, physiologically, it deregulates appetite. So all of a sudden I can find myself eating more, and I think I have a food issue, but really I'm being physiologically driven to eat more or less. So stress will deregulate our appetite. It will it will shut down digestion to some degree. So all of a sudden it could lead to all these nutrition issues, health issues, because everything starts in the digestive system. So all I'm saying is we can no longer expect good nutrition alone to do it for us. We've got to kind of dive into my life and all aspects of it, because usually the key places where we are experiencing, I'll call it challenge, those are the places that often are plugging into our relationship with food and potentially driving our binge eating or driving our overeating or driving our emotional eating. People think it's a food issue. And there's a thousand reasons why somebody might binge eat. There actually could be nutritional reasons. You could be fat deficient because you think fat is bad for me. Fat in my diet is bad for me. So you're eating low fat, and it's kind of predictable for a lot of people. They might find themselves binge eating. If they're on a low fat diet, that's too low for them long enough. But somebody might be binge eating because I'm having issues in my relationship and I'm really not communicating to my partner. But instead of working on that, I just kind of hold it in. And the psyche, the mind, doesn't quite like that strategy. So we will invent an alert mechanism, a signal. And that signal often looks like binge eating or emotional eating or overeating. It could be a headache. It could be digestive issues. So symptomology is really the brilliance of the body. It's the brilliance of the universe talking to us. I don't even know if I answered your question. It was a great question.
Oh, no, it's great. I love it. I think, there's a few really interesting points you touched on there. One of the points I'd like to come back to is you talk about when you're in a stress state or when you have some sort of external factor that changes who you are or your thoughts or your emotions in that moment, then that affects how you eat. I mean, I think all people can relate to that. Tell me a little bit about your idea behind the slow down diet and how that helps mitigate that issue, because a lot of us are going to go through life and have stressful times, have times when we have emotional issues we're going through, and that's going to affect how we eat potentially. How does this approach, this slow down diet idea that you have, help solve that issue for people?
Well, one of the things, thanks for asking that question. One piece that I noticed when I look at, okay, where do most people get stuck? Where do they get stuck in their relationship with food? Where do they tend to get stuck health-wise, nutrition-wise? And what I noticed that we tend to move pretty quickly. Humans, we move fast, and it seems like life is getting faster and faster with the internet age and fast cars and fast internet. It's everything's got to be fast. And what happens is when we're moving fast, we lose a sense of nuance. We lose connection to the thing that we're doing. So something simple as fast eating. Fast eating, most people, and I've asked this question of thousands of people over the years, are you a fast eater, moderate eater, or slow eater? 85% of people raise their hand and they say, I'm a fast eater. Okay. The act of eating fast is considered a stressor by your body.
Yeah.
So you could be the most relaxed guy in the universe, and you might have the habit of eating fast, which so many people do. You eat food fast, and all of a sudden the body's in a stress response. So when the body goes into a stress response, sympathetic nervous system dominance deregulates appetite, some degree of digestive shutdown, some degree of nutrient excretion. Okay, so assimilation is decreased. And on top of that, we're going to be producing more excess insulin, excess cortisol, which signal the body to store weight, store fat, not build muscle, which is the opposite of what most people want. So that's just fast eating. But then there's also, I'm not aware if I'm moving fast. I'm not aware of the food. So all of a sudden, I'm missing these things called taste, pleasure, aroma, satisfaction, and the visuals of the meal. Well, there's something physiologists, scientists call cephalic phase digestive response. Cephalic means of the head. Cephalic phase digestive response, again, is a fancy term for taste, pleasure, aroma, satisfaction. When you do the sum total of all the research done on cephalic phase digestive response, scientists will tell us that 40 to 60% of our metabolic power, our digestive, assimilative, and calorie-burning power at any meal comes from the head phase of digestion, my awareness of the meal.
Wow.
And you've heard this. So many people have heard how, it takes the body 20 minutes to realize it's full. Now, that's actually useful because what it's saying, and that's approximate, but what it's saying is head brain and gut brain need time to scan the nutritional profile of the meal. It needs time to figure out, does this guy have enough macronutrients, micronutrients? Is there enough fiber? Is there enough water? Is there enough, like what's going on with the meal? If we don't notice the meal, the brain doesn't get that input, and the brain says, I don't remember food, I don't remember eating or taste, hungry. So we're physiologically driven to eat more, and we then think it's a willpower issue. Like, oh my God, I can't control my willpower. I'm such a weakling. It has nothing to do with that. You didn't notice, you weren't present to your meal.
Wow, what a profound message. So really, when you talk about this, you're really trying to develop a new way that people approach food, a new way that people sit down to eat. And I think what's interesting about this is and I'm sure you've done this research, you look at the blue zones all around the world, these long-lived people. I mean, how do they approach food? Love, reverence, respect. They eat slowly. They sit down. They have 2-hour meals. They're living in multi-generational homes where you've got the great-great-grandparents, the grandparents, the kids, the grandchildren. You have this completely beautiful relationship with food, and yet we have moved into our modern technological era, and we have this completely skewed approach to food, and it's little wonder we're suffering from the digestion problems, especially the gut issues that we have today, and also we struggle with confidence and body image because as a result of eating in that fast way, we're causing havoc to our body.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit now about beauty and confidence? Because, that's a really important topic for a lot of people because, confidence affects how you see yourself, how the world sees you, how you show up. Let's talk about how the psychology of eating, how you approach food and the food you eat impacts beauty. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love this question, James. And it's, I want to tell a quick story, and this happened about 20 years ago. A client comes to see me. She wants one session, and at that time, I wouldn't just see somebody for one session, but I said yes for one reason. She was 90 years old, and she's going to come see me. I'm like, this is going to be my oldest client ever. This has to be interesting. So this woman literally just glides into my office. She's 90 years old, and the moment she walks in, I'm stunned, and I don't even know why. And I'm looking at this woman, and I'm thinking, you are 90, but you kind of look like about 60. You move like you're about 40, and there's something really special about you. And here I am. I'm this guy, and I've got a lot to learn about life still, and I'm trying to understand what is different about this woman. And all of a sudden, halfway through the session, and by the way, she was seeing me because she wanted to just update her information. Is she doing the right thing for her health? Is she on the right diet? What's the latest new information she should know about? When she told me that, I said, I should be just listening to you this whole session. I should pay you. You should teach me. You're 90. You're beautiful. You're healthy. I know nothing, So, but finally, I got it about halfway through the session. I thought, this woman is glowing. She is radiant. And then I commented to her. I said, I just got to say something to you. I have never met a 90-year-old woman like you. You're just glowing and you're just radiant. And her response to me with this beautiful smile, she said to me, I've really done my best to work on myself and to be a good person and to be a good woman and to be a good mother and a good grandmother and a good wife. And what I got from that, and I started comparing it to other women that I would meet. And when we do the inner work on self, yes, good nutrition. Okay. Yes, good nutrition. Let's put that over here for a second. And when we are updating our internal system around what do I need to look at? How do I need to grow? How do I step more into my royalty? How do I step into my dignity? She was glowing because she encountered life. So what I see a lot of people doing, especially women, because, in my work, I would say 95% of our universe is women. And more men are coming to the table now. But what I'm going to say is that so many women have been given the message from the media that you will be lovable and you will be acceptable when you look like this, when you weigh like this, and when you're shaped like this. So fill in the blank. Everybody kind of has their different image of what that's going to be. But we take this image, we internalize it, and we say, I can't be happy until. So automatically we decrease our radiance, we decrease our light, we decrease our expression because I'm not good enough. I'm not okay as I am. So then we start to search for self-love through dieting, through this result that I'm supposed to get by dieting, by exercising my brains out, by eating some awful diet that I can't sustain. That's not going to work. Maybe I'll lose a bunch of weight, but I gain it right back. So what I want to say is, I think that, so what we see is we need to invite people into, how do you start to love what you got right now? And yeah, if you want to shapeshift your body, fine. But instead of hating your body into change, let's love it into change. Beautiful. Because think of it. What do you want at the end of your dieting journey, at the end of your nutrition, dieting, exercise journey? You want to love yourself. You want to say, this is great. I love life. I'm the express me. I'm confident. I'm getting out in the world. I wear what I want to wear. I do what I want. Okay, so you want to be happy and you want to love yourself at the end. How could a road filled with self-hate and self-attack and looking in the mirror and saying, you're no good, you're ugly, you're not going to be okay until you look like this, how could a road of self-hate possibly lead to self-love? In other words, journey informs the destination. So we have to switch our mind. And yes, you could want to change your body, but that doesn't mean you have to hate the self that you are right now.
Wow, profound. So through that process, and I love this approach because I mean I'm a big fan of Dr. Christian Northrup.
Mhm,
Um, Obviously, a lot of the work that Louise Hay has done as well on helping establish a better relationship with the self, and her famous incantation, which is "I accept myself unconditionally right now," and
mhm.
to start from that point wherever you are, and then take your healing journey forward. What are some of the roadblocks that people generally come up against when they try to do that? So intellectually, people might go, Marc, that's a profound idea, and I love it. The reason that woman was radiant was she committed herself to a lifetime of personal development and the
Mhm.
development and the cultivation of the love of self.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful message. So say that our listeners and myself, we intellectually acknowledge that fact. What are some of the blocks that come up when we try to integrate it into our lives? And what are some of the ways that we can integrate a better self-love thought pattern into our daily routine?
Great. I so love this question. Thank you. And I want to get back to how you first phrased the question.
Mm-hmm.
Your first phrasing of the question, what are some of the roadblocks that we
Yeah.
hit?
Yeah.
So let me
Good.
start like that because I think it's helpful. Roadblock number one, and in no particular order, but sort of close in order, that I see people hit is, we're humans and we tend to want immediate gratification.
Yeah.
If any of you have children or remember being children, you might know that kids want immediate gratification. They don't care if something has sugar in it. This tastes good. I want it now. So we want things now. I want to be out of my pain and suffering now. I want my perfect body now. I want my perfect health now. Give me the magic pill. Give me the magic system. So right then and there, we put ourselves into a stress response because you know what? Certain things take time. You want to build a house. You want to build a relationship. You want to create a business. You want to shift your body. You want to learn something new. It takes time. So to me, we need to time shift and relax into that part of our journey rather than stress into it and understand that the journey of self love is a practice. And something, some days we're not going to hit the target. Some days I'm going to wake up and I feel really good about myself. And think about this for those of you tuning in. How many times has this happened? There's certain days you just wake up feeling good. Then you look in the mirror and you go, I really look good. Now, the next day, you're the same person. The next day, you look the same, but you wake up feeling bad for whatever reason, and you look in the mirror and you think you got fat or you think you don't look good because the way the brain works, the way the mind works, is we tend to look as good as we feel to ourselves. So, what I want to say about that is when we embrace the concept of a practice and we play a long game, meaning self love is a lifelong practice. I love myself a heck of a lot more today than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's probably going to be even more, because I'm playing a long game with that. So people need to relax that it's not going to happen overnight and forgive yourself, forgive the universe that we can't have immediate gratification on these kinds of things. I'm going to call that, the main obstacle that people face. They
Mm.
don't want to make this a practice. They want to kind of, oh, let me just try an hors d'oeuvre here and a little thing here. James, I tried that self-love thing yesterday. It didn't work. Um, so yeah, read more books, practice it more. So to me, it's little baby steps. I'm always asking people, when do you actually love yourself the most? When do you care for yourself the most? When do you nourish yourself the most? What are the conditions? And start to cultivate that more. What are the little ways that you self-care that really make a difference, even if it takes a minute out of your day, if it takes 2 minutes out of your day? When are the times you speak most kindly to yourself? So instead of battling the demon called I hate myself, instead of battling that demon, put the demon over here and then start to gather momentum in the positive sense. So emphasize the practices that I already do that I might not have noticed. So this requires doing an inventory for yourself. a pleasure inventory, a self-love inventory. Think of all the ways you love yourself, persons, places, things, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, animals, foods, whatever it is. Make an exhaustive list and start to see what could I do more of on that.
Wow, that's great. And so that's generally a first point of call for you with your clients as well. It'd be like, okay, let's identify what issues someone might have, but then let's make this pleasure inventory. I love that idea. So then you're writing down and helping people identify with times that they spend in self-love,
Yes.
in self-care, even in personal development and developing
Mm-hmm.
more of that sense of self. Once somebody does that, is it as simple as like you finished off there, just do more of that and the bad stuff will generally drop away? Is that how it works?
Well, here's the thing. I think, and this is what I try to impress upon students, clients, friends, loved ones, anyone that'll listen to me. It's a journey. It's really a journey. And, the journey's never straight up to heaven. We kind of spiral and maybe dip down a bit and then we go up and then we kind of plateau for a while. So I think we as humans have to get accustomed to the fact that it's not going to look exactly like we want it to when we want it to, but can we trust our journey more? Can we just trust this life that we've been given and the story that we're living out? So it's not that it's easy, it's simple in concept. Life is challenging. And when life gets challenging, we will often find ourselves all of a sudden, whatever eating problems we're facing might get emphasized because we will use food. Humans use food to regulate their emotional metabolism.
Yeah.
You've been doing it since you've been a baby. You look at a crying, screaming infant, right? Crying, screaming infant. All of a sudden, you give the infant to mama, and in a second, she gives it the bottle, gives it the breast, and the infant is happy, immediately stops crying. So you and I, all of us, we have this embedded genetic memory, not only from your own body, but from generations and generations of feel bad, be a crying, screaming little infant, get food, feel good. So we have that in us. So anytime you're feeling nervous, anxious, stressed, something's going wrong, I could eat food and feel better, which you will. Temporarily, sometimes it's a fine strategy. Sometimes it's fine to eat food to feel better. And it can become problematic. It depends. So we have to understand that we use food for that. You probably will use food for that, and it's okay. We're not going to be perfect. I think so. That's the other obstacle, James. I think people get this perfection thing in their mind, and it's a bad virus. Like, I've got to be perfect. And I tell my perfectionist clients, friends, students, and there's so many of them. You didn't invent perfectionism. It's this parasite that kind of finds a home in us. Comes from the media, comes from what the world teaches us. We think we have to have the perfect body, the perfect shape, the perfect life, the perfect diet, and then you get on social media and everybody looks like they have this perfect life. And then we look at our own selves and we go, oh my God, I'm not perfect. So we get this addiction to perfection. And we got to let go of that and embrace life. Life is messier than that. You're not always going to follow your perfect diet perfectly. You're not going to have the perfect body. It doesn't exist. It's airbrushed. And if you have it, it doesn't last. Appreciate it while you got it. So I think we have to embrace our humanity a little bit more and understand that, there's going to be times when you're not perfect. Can you forgive yourself? And then And it's not that I'm going to eat this perfect diet for the rest of my life, rather than go there, I'm going to do the best I can. And when I veer and when I mess up, big hug.
Yeah.
It's okay. Let go of the self-rejection because what does that do? And then let's start over. So it's not trusting that we're going to be perfect. It's trusting that you can stand by you even when you're not perfect and even when you make a mistake or even when you take a wrong turn. Trust that you're not going to abandon yourself.
Yeah.
Trust that you're going to still honor yourself and stand by you, because if I can't do that for me, who's going to do it?
It's true. And as you've been talking about this particular long-winded answer, which I love, a couple of things came up for me. One was there's this element you talk about of this development of the third person, almost this awareness that you have about why you choose certain foods. I think that's a really important thing that people will develop over time. And if I think to another interview I've done recently with JJ Virgin, she was talking about how Kaiser Permanente have done studies on journaling and how important journaling is in helping people make positive changes. So people will think, oh yeah, I eat healthy, oh no, I'm not stressed, and they start to journal like what they're eating on a daily basis, plus also any emotions, and it's quite confronting. So when you talk about a pleasure journal, do you think it's a good idea as well for people to write down what they're eating and maybe emotionally what's happening in their life at the time to see if there's any correlation there so they can develop that sort of third person awareness in their approach to food and health?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends. So I think it's a great strategy for some people, and I think it's not so great for other people, meaning this. I meet some people who they're so caught up in their relationship with food and what they eat and when they ate it and should they have eaten it and what was going on. And they're in such an obsessive state that I want to help them move out of that. I want to help them take a deep breath, and I actually want them to put food aside. And with that kind of client, I will sit with them and invite them out of the food conversation into the rest of their life because they're so focused on food. Now, to your point, there's another subset of people out there who are so unaware of what they're eating and they don't pay attention, and food is just like whatever. And they're not making the connection that they don't even realize what they're putting in their mouth. They don't even realize that they're eating when they're not hungry. So so that's the person I might say, hey, here's a good strategy for you. Keep a journal. Notice what you eat, and then, write down what you're up to, how you were feeling. For that person, that strategy is a revelation. For the other person, it puts them into more torture, more self-torture.
Sure.
You follow what I'm saying?
I do. And I completely understand that. So it's a case-by-case basis.
I think so, yeah.
Let's talk about how a woman's archetype or stage of life affects their relationship with beauty. Because Ariel Ford, I believe, has written a book called Wabi Sabi Love, and she told me the explanation of Wabi Sabi one day when I was sitting with her. I forget where I was exactly, but it was a dinner party. And she said, Wabi Sabi, and I might get this wrong, maybe you can help, maybe not, is this idea that you can love something even as it grows old. Or even you can love and appreciate something that does age. And it's a concept from the Japanese. And it's interesting to have this 90-year-old that walked in radiantly into your practice years ago and think, wow, what a beautiful woman. Except we've been so conditioned to think that anyone with wrinkles or anyone that's aging is not beautiful. I mean, there's that societal pressure on beauty and appearance. But how does an individual stage of life affect how we approach beauty and how we approach that from a self-confidence perspective?
I love this. And I'm going to answer this in the perspective of women, in the perspective of the feminine. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Remember that fairy tale? So you have kind of like the evil older queen/witch, and she's looking, and the mirror tells her, well, lady, you're pretty hot, but Snow White, she's the one that's got it. She's the girl. Now, what you have right there is a classic archetypal juxtaposition between the princess, the younger woman, Snow White, younger woman, princess. So when I use the term princess, I am not using it in a pejorative, in an insulting way, because some cultures, like American culture, sometimes princess is like a. So I'm using it in the pure archetypal sense that when we're in the princess stage, we are young. So a young princess, if you look at young girls, young women, they are focused on me, as they should be. Me, my beauty. And their sense of self-worth is coming from the outside. Am I okay? Do you love me? Am I pretty? Tell me I'm pretty. Tell me that looked wonderful. Tell me that looked good. So in the princess stage, We are not yet self-referenced because we are not yet mature enough. We don't have enough life experience. There's nothing wrong with that. We are children. Now, there's different stages of princesshood, but when we're in that princess stage, it is natural to feel insecure because we're still developing character. Now, as one gets older and enters the queen stage, a queen, imagine a queen for a moment sitting on her throne, and you're her subject, and you're before the queen, and she says, "Oh my God, James, like, am I too fat? Do I need to lose 5 pounds? Like, am I okay? Do you love me?" If your queen said that, you might not want to follow her. You might not have so much confidence in her. But the archetypal queen that we might know and love, she sits on her throne. She knows who she is. She's confident about herself. People give to her and people serve her because she's giving to them. She's a giver. She knows who she is. She's in touch with her femininity. Why? Because she has lived life. She has gone through the fire. She has gone through tests, and she's learned how to master them. She's gone through challenges and reconnected with self-love. So that person, that woman, yeah, she's not a princess anymore, but a different beauty is coming out. It's the radiance that is born that is a little bit more magical. Now, what happens is there's a lot of women in their 40s. And I'm going to say by the time you hit 40, as a woman, you should be out of that princess stage, clearly out of it. And now you're a queen in training. But what happens is a lot of women are staying princesses. And they're 40 and they're 50 and they're 60 and they're still worried about, am I good enough? Do you love me? Oh my God, I need to lose 5 pounds. Now, I meet women in their 60s and 70s and 80s who are still trying to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds. And that is, from a life stage perspective, we got to fix that. We got to correct that because you miss the place where you ascend the throne and you mature and you become a queen. But in order to do that, it doesn't just happen. We have to own it, have to do a little work. So that's the quick answer to your question. Different life stages. So it's acceptable for a younger woman to need that outside approval. Mm-hmm. As you get older, sure, we want to complement each other. I'm not saying don't, but what I'm saying is something else is born, and it's not about a neediness. It's not about, oh my God, if I don't look a certain way, you're not going to love me. Make sense?
Beautiful analogy. I love it. And it's very profound. And I think what's so great about it is that you don't shy away from... it's not bad to be a princess at a certain stage of life.
Oh, because you are. It's not bad to be a prince. Yeah.
But then there's this place where you might be being a princess a little bit too long before you mature into a queen archetype. Yes. A very beautiful analogy. Could I talk a little bit more about moving into a queen archetype? What if somebody here is thinking, okay, maybe I'm a little bit princessy. Maybe I've been approaching my diet because of societal impacts or whatever, that I want to lose this extra 5 pounds, or I need to do this in order to be beautiful so that I can be loved and respected, as opposed to shifting that from an inside out job. How do you help people transition from princess to queen archetype? What are some of the sort of tips and strategies that you generally recommend?
Ooh, big, wonderful question. So I'm gonna answer it probably in a general way and some specific ways because it depends on the person. But generally, I would say, okay, find those women in your life, either people that you know or people that you see in the media. Who are the women that you look up to? Who are the queens that you respect? And do me a favor, do some journaling and discover for yourself, write down, what do I respect about them? Why do I look up to them? Really. So who are the real queens? And when I say real queen, what I mean is the kind of women that you would want ruling your queendom and your kingdom. The kind of women who have matured, the kind of women who have stood the test of life and stood the test of time and elevated themselves. And they're now giving their greatest gifts. They're living in their best expression. And that could be anything. For some women, that's being an amazing mother. For some women, it's being a certain kind of professional. It could be being an artist. It could be being a businesswoman. It doesn't matter what it is. Who are the women that you respect, and begin to notice those qualities that you're looking up to because those are the qualities that you want to see in yourself. And so who do you want to model after? That's one place to start. Another place to start also is to ask yourself, if you're of queen age, 40 and up, where are the places in my life where I'm being a princess? Where are the places in life where it is time for me to sit on my throne? And sitting on your throne means you're not in constant conversation with yourself or with the world about, oh my God, I don't look good enough. I'm not okay as I am. Can you please see that strategy is not life stage appropriate for you? Can you see that? Can you feel that? Because I'm going to tell you, once most women hear that distinction, they get it because it's infused in us. Joseph Campbell, who really kind of pushed the envelope around our understanding of archetypes, he had a very interesting statement. I haven't seen this written down. I heard him speak back in 1982.
Lucky you.
Yeah. And he said something. I was in graduate school. Somebody asked him, Dr. Campbell, you're always talking about archetypes. Like, where are they? And I kind of thought it was a dumb question. The person's like, where are they? And Joseph Campbell, he held up his hand, like to say, wait a second. He said, they live inside your DNA.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, wow, he said, they're locked and loaded in us. They're born into us. They're part of who we are. That's what I took from that.
Yeah.
Like, just as you're a male, you have a certain color eye, you have a certain, like, there's certain things that are genetically programmed into our DNA. The archetypes, they come packaged into our software program. So people really get it, I think.
Beautiful. Well, I love that. But then, and another interesting way to look at that could be around, this idea of epigenetics, where if we influence the environment around a cell, we can change how it expresses itself. Much the same way in talking about these. If we're putting a 40 or 50-year-old woman in a princess environment with princess media, she's going to be expressing those princess qualities, chasing the extra 5 pounds worth of loss, as opposed to being in an environment of queens where she can fully step into her power and sit on a throne. This is a really cool analogy, and I think it has a lot of that we could continue to discuss on it. But can we move a little bit more now into some specifics around the gut and gut health? At the start of the conversation here, we talked a little bit about stress and how stress can impair nutrient absorption in the body, and so you get more nutrient loss. And the gut is such a primary ruler of the body now. I mean, we understand so much more about the gut-brain connection and how a feedback mechanism can go up that way. But what are some of the factors that can diminish gut health, and what can we do to improve our digestion and gut health overall?
Beautiful question. First, I think people really need to understand that the gut, the digestive system, is so wonderfully complex and it's so wonderfully intelligent. There's this thing we call the enteric nervous system. It's the separate yet interconnected nervous system in your digestive system. There are as many nerve cells in your gut nervous system as there are in your spinal cord. It's over 100 million, which simply means there's a lot of brilliance and intelligence that lives inside the gut, which is why people say, wow, I had a gut feeling about that guy. We don't say I had an elbow feeling or a kidney feeling, because there's a lot of information there. So, how scientists sometimes say, oh, you only use a few percent of your brain, whatever it is. I feel like we're only using a few percent of our gut brain, our gut intelligence, our body wisdom, our body intelligence. What makes the brain smarter? The brain has to be in a state of relaxation in order for the executive function of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, to be firing. If you're running from a lion, you are not busy writing the next great novel. You're not creating a beautiful work of art. You're not coming up with more brilliant ideas for Food Matters. What you're doing when you're being chased by a lion is you are brilliant at survival in those moments. You're brilliant at fighting or fleeing or figuring out what to do to save yourself. Now, what's happening is when we are living in a state of anxiety, fear, stress, and all of which creates stress physiology in the body. And so, simple science of it, the very simple science, nervous system divided into two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system dominance means we are in stress response. Digestive system in a full-blown stress response completely shuts down. Because when that lion is chasing you, you need all your metabolic energy going into fighting or fleeing, all of it. So digestion completely shuts down because digestive system takes a lot of energy. When we are in a state of relaxation, parasympathetic nervous system dominance, that's how we're hardwired. That is the optimal state of digestion, assimilation, calorie burning, and natural appetite. This should be front page news in every nutrition book. You could be eating the healthiest freaking food in the universe. If you are not under the optimum state of digestion, assimilation, calorie burning, and appetite regulation, which is relaxation, then you are not getting the full value of the meal. Now, here's the thing. It's not just the lion that causes me and you to go into stress. Oftentimes, we are creating self-created stress.
Yeah.
Self-created stress is, I hate myself, I'm no good, I hate men, I hate women, this is dangerous, that's dangerous, oh my God, you're born and then you die and life is meaningless. That creates stress. And it's low level. We don't think of it like that, but it is impacting physiology. It's not completely shutting down digestion, but it will impact us. And think of the times when you're a little bit more anxious, you're a little nervous, your belly feels queasy. That's your digestive system beginning to shut down. And especially if you're eating fast or if you're self-sabotaging, you're hating yourself, you're talking negatively to yourself, you are literally telling your digestive system to stop digesting.
Wow.
So what I am saying is that, okay, simple way to counteract it. Let's just do like the easiest technique in the universe, which is 5 to 10 long, slow, deep breaths. Can take the human body from a stress response into relaxation response in less than a minute. Why? Breathing pattern of stress is shallow, infrequent, arrhythmic. Breathing pattern of relaxation, regular, rhythmic, deep. When you adopt the breathing pattern of relaxation, even though you're stressed, you fool the brain. Your brain says, wait a second, I thought I was stressed. I'm breathing like a relaxed person. I must be relaxed. So then all of a sudden the body shifts less than a minute, and that's with deep breathing. Another way you can do the same kind of quick relaxation is simply focus on a sensation. And when I say focus on a sensation, meaning you can focus on a visual. You could just stare out a tree outside your window for a minute and just focus on vision and looking at the tree and the nuances. It'll actually relax the body. You can focus on the nice music that you just put on. That'll relax the body. You can meditate and focus on your own breath. That can relax the body. So it's the simple technique called, we're humans, we're experiencing life. There will be stress. You will be talking negatively to yourself. There's going to be crazy stuff happening on any given day. What are the things I can do? And oftentimes it's creating, like you said, the epigenetic environment. How do I create, when possible, an environment that's most conducive to the nourishment process, which means it's going to be relaxed. So maybe it's music, maybe it's taking out your favorite bowl, maybe it's having dinner with a friend. Whatever it is for you that helps you calm down, do it,
Love it. Awesome. Let me talk now a little bit as we get to the last sort of few points I want to cover here. One of the things we touched on earlier in our conversation was about cravings, and you said there's a couple of different ways people can develop cravings. That can be filling an emotional need, for instance, and the other way could be filling a macro or micronutrient need. Maybe they're craving fat, so they keep eating certain fatty foods, despite the fact that quality fat might be very damaging to the body. Let's talk about cravings, the sort of 3 different types of cravings. I believe you identify them in 3 different types. And, what are some strategies that people can use on the ground when it's happening to sort of counteract those moments when we want to crave and binge on certain food groups?
Sure. It's such a great question because humans crave. We crave things. We crave sunshine. I crave connection. I crave intimacy. Sometimes I crave meaning. Sometimes I crave money. Sometimes I crave my best friends. So nothing wrong with intense desire. It simply means you're alive. So the first thing we have to do is take the judgment out of craving because people go into judgment. Oh my God, I want sugar. Don't judge it. Of course, you want sugar. It's sweet. It gives you a chemical hit. It makes your brain go on fire and having all this pleasure. It makes sense. Okay, so once you take away the judgment, then we can actually be good scientists of the body. When I say good scientists, I mean an explorer. I mean, you gather data, you get curious, you gather information. Oh my goodness, I'm craving this. Sometimes we crave for good reason. Animals in nature do this all the time. You animal lovers, you know this. You watch your dog. Dogs will eat weird weeds outside. Dogs will eat clay. Dogs will eat pine cones. They know exactly what to do. Animals in nature will eat the oddest things sometimes. Humans will do that too. Sometimes a human will have a craving, and it's actually what your body needs. And it could be a healthy food. It could be a food that you might not consider healthy, but something, sometimes when you eat the ice cream, we needed that pleasure hit. We needed that experience. We needed that release. We needed to just go, oh, whatever. For some people, that can work. For others, it doesn't. So what I'm saying is a supportive craving is the kind of craving where it's body wisdom talking. How do I know if it's my body wisdom talking? Well, you experiment and you see what happens. You eat the food, and then 20 minutes later, an hour later, how do you feel? What's your experience? Do you feel better for it? Are you feeling guilty?
Yeah.
Do you feel awful? You ate the ice cream. Are you congested? What's happening?
Yeah.
So that I'm calling a supportive craving. Another kind of craving, we'll call it a dispersive craving. It's the kind of craving that, it's not really what your body necessarily needs. And that kind of craving, what often happens is people oftentimes, not always, if you're too low in a macronutrient like protein or like fat, and there are substances in fat, essential fats, we call it essential for a reason. The human body needs it. If I'm low in fat or if I'm low in protein, oftentimes, oddly enough, people will crave something sweet. They'll crave sugar. They'll literally crave almost the opposite, a carbohydrate of what they need. Why? Well, that's how humans are wired. If you're an alcoholic, you're craving alcohol. Do you need more alcohol? No. If you're a cocaine addict, you're craving cocaine. Do you need that? No. We get our wires crossed. The body knows it's hungry. It just can't quite figure it out because we haven't taught it enough. We haven't interacted enough with body wisdom. So I'm going to watch those cravings. I'm always going to experiment. I'm always going to try. But I'm also going to listen to that craving as best I can because, again, I'm going to now look at the rest of my diet. Or if a client comes to one of our practitioners, they're going to notice their levels of macronutrients. They're going to notice also you might be craving because you've been skipping meals all day. And then all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock. You've been starving yourself because you've been trying to diet. Of course, you're craving this, that, and the other thing. You're starving. Yet another craving, I'm going to call it an associative craving. You and I, people, we often associate certain people, certain situations with certain foods. I go and visit my relatives and I will start to crave things from my childhood, plain and simple. I go to New York City and visit my family. I crave pizza. I crave Italian food. I don't eat that. But I'm in my home turf and I'm with my people that I used to eat those foods with. So I just noticed that and I watched that. And again, I'm going to say, is there something wrong with me? No, it's part of being human because it's the kind of classical conditioning when you put two stimuli together, good times with family and food, even if it might be bad for you, but there's this beautiful association. Sometimes we have to uncouple those to really be healthy and follow the kind of diet that works for us. But really the point I'm trying to make is we have to be willing explorers and try and experiment and gather information and let go of the judgment.
Great, wonderful. I love especially that the first point of letting go of the judgment. I mean, when you no longer judge a craving, because a craving can be healthy. I crave going for a swim in the ocean. I crave eating an avocado. I crave having a green drink. And I can also crave things that are less good to my health as well. And I think it's natural to think that all cravings are bad, but eliminating that power means that it no longer has power over you, and then you can start to observe it more from a third person. Brilliant concept. I love it. Very sound idea. So as we wrap up here, I want to ask you probably the most difficult question of the whole interview. What would be one golden nugget or one final message that you could leave people with here based on our conversation today in order for them to be able to experience a greater sense of radiance, beauty, confidence, and capability as they move into their power on this planet?
James, what a wonderfully generous question. Thank you for asking that, really.
And can I just say as well, I love your enthusiasm about all the questions today. It's infectious.
Yeah, well, to me, these are important questions. They really are, because food is important. Our relationship with food is important. Our health is important. So my answer to your question is, if I can suggest one thing to viewers and listeners, it is discover what your higher purpose is for eating. Discover what your higher purpose is for following a good diet. Meaning, are you going to eat healthy and eat really great and exercise just so you can look in the mirror all day and look at how wonderful you are? So good nutrition, good health must have a reason. And to me, what I would like to suggest is that a reason to have good health, a reason to eat healthy, is so that I can be the best expression of me, so I can have all my energy, so I can have my life force available to give the gifts that I came here to give. So my nutrition is not an end in and of itself. My weight, my body, how much muscle I have is not just for vanity. Okay, yeah, a little vanity for sure, but it's serving a higher purpose. And the higher purpose is I want to be alive. I want to give my gifts to the world. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to have an impact. In order to do that, I need energy. I need health. My brain's got to be smart. My stuff's got to be working here. So have a higher reason. It might be so you could be the best parent and you could have a long life to be with your kids, to be with your friends, to be with your loved ones. Start to ask yourself, what is the higher purpose to me following a good diet and having a good body, having a healthy body? And if you can put first things first, all the diet strategies and all the challenges that we face, they become a lot easier, because now we have like a North Star that we're heading towards that's bigger than just, did I eat enough roughage today or whatever it is.
Oh, Marc, I love it. That's so great. And it's such a sound guiding principle with life in general. I think, the more I've understood about your work today with the psychology of eating, and I encourage people to check out more of your work, and in particular, the two books that you've written here as well, the Nourishing Wisdom and the Slow Down Diet. But one of the core threads is that, and it came up in an interview I did with a gentleman recently for a new film project I'm working on, and it was about the most important work you can do is the work on yourself. And in cultivating that sense of self-love, that sense of self-worth, that sense that you're enough, and from that place you develop a big why, a big reason that you're here. And what I loved about this is you said develop a why around food. Why do you eat? And it's such a great concept, and I think it's a perfect nugget of wisdom to leave people on. Marc, it's been fantastic speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time, and you've been a wealth of knowledge.
James, I so appreciate the opportunity, and just kudos to you for really pouring your heart out into Food Matters and touching so many people. We've been touched here, so thank you.